All right. Hello, everybody. This is Nish. I'm doing something a little bit new. I'm going to be doing a little tutorial on components in Unity. Now, these are a little bit difficult to wrap your head around at first. I'm kind of teaching myself Unity at the moment, and I really wish somebody had made a tutorial on this stuff. So that's what I'm going to do. In case you downloaded the Nish boats prefab, which I created, this tutorial will also teach you a few things about changing out the various components there as well. So first of all, if you open up your prefab, there's going to be a whole bunch of objects in your hierarchy here. And when you click on one, you might have a whole list of garbage that is kind of hard to understand, but it's pretty easy once you know what each individual component is doing. So I'll start by telling you that each of these things here is a component, and if you were to say add a rigid body to any object, you would have these parameters here. And now parameters are really useful. They can also completely break your game. So usually you can hover over parameter, and my recording isn't actually picking it up, but it'll tell you a description of what that parameter does for you. Now, some of the most useful parameters in VRChat are going to be things like materials. So if you click on an object, now this is a rowboat, but this is not the rowboat that I actually have selected. If I press F, it'll frame whatever I have selected in the hierarchy. So that's a little bit useful for navigation. And you can see that somewhere in this parent and object hierarchy thing, there is a mesh renderer. Now the mesh renderer is what makes anything in Unity or VRChat visible. Now underneath the materials, you might have to tab it down, but this is something that you'll probably have an issue with early on. You'll end up, let's say, make a cube, 3D object, cube. Okay, I have this cube, and now I have this totally weird material grayed out at the bottom. It says default material, and you can't change that. It doesn't let you change it. What you would actually have to do is make your own little folder here, maybe a materials folder like I did, and you would create a material. Let's say niche material. And at this point, you can set the color to whatever you want. And if you click this in that little eyeball, will let you search up. Well, the search won't record either. You can either search up a material from all of your materials in your assets, or if you don't want to do that, what I prefer doing anyway is dragging the material onto the object. And that will work in 99% of your use cases. You can also lock the inspector and drag it into here as well. And that'll actually work for pretty much any component that you're trying to change. So say that instead of changing the cube, I wanted to change the fin on this. I'll try to find the mesh renderer, and drag Nish material in where it says trunk here, and that'll change the material, just like that. If you did something that you don't want, you can press Control Z, and unless you deleted an asset or did some other undoable action, Control Z will undo pretty much anything that you accidentally did. So anyway, about these parents now. So you might notice there's a parent object, and then way down here is the actual thing. You know, there's the collider, and the collider is what you would be able to stand on. So you can see this collider here is actually like a box, and it's not the shape of the boat at all. You can parent a rigid body over a collider or a series of colliders, and all of those colliders will work in tandem as a single rigid body. This is really useful if you're doing something like, say, you have a box collider on your mast that you want to still stop you, but you don't want to go through and make a whole mesh collider for just a little boat. So I think we'll wrap up that little mini short tutorial there. Actually, there's one more thing. Say that you wanted to change what something looked like here. I've got a whole bunch of meshes. I'm just gonna pick one. So I've got this mesh, and I think that this mesh would look perfect as a boat. So I'm gonna take this rowboat and replace the mesh in the mesh filter. The mesh filter, it basically just passes a mesh to the mesh renderer, and the mesh renderer will put all of the materials and shadows and everything else onto the mesh. But the mesh filter, you can freely change things out. That doesn't look quite right, so maybe I'll find a material here. There we go. And maybe scale that down. You can press this transform tool. It is all the other tools combined in one. It's usually the only thing that I use. But you can see that we actually just successfully transformed that boat that was a rowboat before into a bridge just by changing the mesh. And of course, the material that I'm using is compatible with the mesh, but if you were to say change the material out for this dark trunk material is good, that would also work. It'll just apply a color evenly across the mesh. Other things might not work as well, but you could try. Like say that wood texture definitely doesn't work very well. But try to experiment, see what you like, and yeah, pretty great. I'm considering maybe a tutorial on particle systems. I'm not sure. Just let me know what you think, and you know, hopefully this was useful if you end up customizing your boats at all. So have a good one.